There we go. Alrighty. Well, that was a hoot, wasn't it? Been having some technical difficulties the last half an hour. Something about, I don't know, taking this camera and this microphone on the road 2 weeks ago now to Tabletop Minions. To the expo. When I plugged it all back together again, the audio I think seems to be working. Let me know how it sounds. The levels are a little lower than I would think, so I'm going to maybe try to turn it up just a touch. If I can figure out which direction is up. Let's see if that helps at all. Can you guys hear anything? I'm going to do this. How about this? Is this better? Better one, better two. Better one? Doesn't seem to be... It's not using the right microphone. That's the problem. I think. Yeah, it's not using the right microphone. So that's the problem. How do I fix that? I apologize to you guys. I hope you guys are doing stuff and having a good time. That muted it. We don't want to do that. How do I set the default microphone? Devices, audio, Yeti. That's what I would like. I don't want to make it a separate thing. Can you guys hear me? I'm assuming so. Sources, outputs, extensions, tools. Well, anyway, for right now, I think, I don't know what's making the noise. Somebody do this. No, let's see. I just turned off the microphone, but you guys can still hear me because I can still see the thing bouncing. So I think it's using the webcam's microphone, and I'm not 100% remembering how to fix it, which is not awesome. Widgets, extensions, outputs, tools, share my stream, create, let's see here. Anyway, it was loud for a minute and now quiet again. I don't know what's going on here. How to set up mic in XSplit. Oh, and yeah, I'm gonna watch a. Sounds like. Sometimes I really dislike it when the main kind of thing that you're going to find out about is a video. Like, I don't really want to watch a video right now. I want to know how to do this. So how do I set up my audio? Go to Tools, General Settings. Oh, there is no general settings. There's just settings. I guess that would help. Audio, system sound, not the default microphone. How about the Yeti microphone? Okay, now that's probably a bit better, isn't it? How about this? Anything better? We get a little bit better audio? Is it too loud now? Hopefully not. Alrighty. Sorry, I apologize for the all this stuff. I'm hoping, is it working better now? The levels look better. There we go. Okay, good. I'm also having some trouble with the camera. It does not want to zoom anymore. Like, normally I have it sitting on top of my monitor over here, and then I just zoom in it a little bit so it doesn't see the entire dining room. And then I pan it, and when I plugged it in, it was working, and then I was setting some stuff, but it was being a little wonky, so I hit refresh on the settings in XSplit, and now I can't zoom it or pan it or do anything anymore. I can change the color, I can change the lighting, I can change all the other stuff, but I can't seem to do anything with the panning and tilting anymore. So I'm going to try to figure that out a little bit later on tonight, maybe. And I'm hearing it's a little bit loud. I'm going to try to turn it down. How about there? There we go. Yeah, the video issue at TMX was really rough. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, it was real problematic. I got to figure out why this camera, actually, the one I'm looking with here, why this camera does not like to work with the laptop. Like, I plug it in and everything seems fine. It sees it, everything's cool. And then after you'd start recording, then everything would go squirrely, as you guys saw. So I'm going to try to see if I can't, figure that out again for next time. Michael Strickler, he did not see the problems there, or in the stream, because he was there. So was the noob painter. So yeah, I hope it was a fun time for the people that were there, and I hope that those of you who listened also had a good time. I'm going to try to get these issues sort of figured out for tomorrow, because tomorrow is the Every Other Sunday show, because it's been 2 weeks since Tabletop Minions. So yeah, that's not too bad. I'm hoping to I'm hoping to get like a couple of things figured out for next year, certainly. I do wonder, how far I can kind of grow it there. But right now I think the location's pretty decent. It's got nice, it's got decent rooms upstairs. You can stay upstairs in the kind of like in dorm rooms, so that worked out well. And like I said, I've had conventions there before, so it was a known quantity. But yeah, it was a good time, and everybody seemed to be having a good time. People were always able to get into a game if they wanted to, and there were a couple of vendors, and it was low key, but it was good. It wasn't like a big, huge convention, obviously, but it was fun. Josh McCarthy says he had a blast. He can't wait for next year. It was good to meet you as well, Josh. Actually, when I was looking for the cord for the microphone, I thought I had left it in one of the boxes, one of the tubs that I kept all the stuff in that I used for the convention. I came across the 3D printed objective markers that Josh gave me. So I'm going to maybe this afternoon, after I'm done with this, try to kind of clean those up a little bit, like around the edges, and maybe prime them. I'm going to be doing some priming outside a little bit later anyway, because if you guys saw a most recent picture I posted on Patreon, was from just a little while ago. I'm getting some more terrain ready for bat reps, so I'm going through some of the old resin stuff that I bought years and years ago from ArmorCast. They haven't been to Gen Con or any convention that I've seen in quite some time, and they still have a website. They still seem to be in business, but like their website, they haven't updated their blog since like 2015. So you may want to shoot them an email and go, if you're interested in buying something from ArmorCast, and they do have some really cool resin terrain, you may want to shoot them an email to make sure they're still there and they're still like awake, or in business or whatever. But they seem to be. But I used to buy stuff from them at conventions and things like that, and the local shop used to have a bunch of stuff up in Appleton. So I've been sitting on a bunch of it for a long time, so I'm gonna finally actually start painting it and using it in this tabletop, which will be really cool for the bat reps and stuff. Josh says the rooms were a trip, as were the showering facilities. Yeah, they were. They are basically dorm rooms. They are they're like dorm style rooms with 2 twin beds and like a dresser for two dressers. Basically, think of like 2 college kids would have normally lived in them. I think there's like a little mini fridge and like a what do you call it? A little microwave on top of the mini fridge, if I remember correctly. But yeah, the bathrooms and the showers are down the hall like you were in college. So, but the college, the showers are stalls. They're not, like you're not group showering like gym class back in middle school or whatever. So that's at least something. But yeah, it was like $40. You know what I mean for per night. So compare that to most hotels, and that's a pretty good deal. So, and it's right upstairs, which is also nice. Josh says the objective marker file that he printed, the objective markers, it's up on Thingiverse for anybody to download and print for free. So for those of you interested in any kind of stuff like that, any kind of 3D printing kind of jazz, Thingiverse is a website you can go to where people will upload, they will make a 3D shape, like in software, and then upload either the OBJ file or the STL file, depending, whatever. And then people can download those files for free, usually, I think all the time. And then you can take that file and put it into your 3D printer and then print out those things. So it's just this huge repository for all kinds of stuff. I have found, if I want to find the kind of stuff that we like, I generally do a keyword search for wargaming or wargaming terrain, depending, and then you find stuff, because otherwise you'll find anything nearly that you can think of, you're going to probably be able to find on Thingiverse. Like if you want a little rack to hold your like SD cards in, like by your computer, so you can just keep all your SD cards organized and stuff like that. You just type in SD card, you're going to find dozens of little SD card racks that you could then download real quick, print out on your 3D printer or whatever, and crank those things out. Just I can't even, little toys, all kinds of stuff, crazy stuff, things that are very useful, things that are silly. But for wargaming stuff, there's a good amount of things on there. I mean, people aren't really putting stuff like full entire like models, but that's not true. I think that I've seen some dreadnoughts and stuff on there. Most 3D printers are at this point still not great at printing, like a normal 28 millimeter size person, at least not the ones you could get in your home. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting that way. Just that the fact that there's a 3D printing kind of marketplace of just free stuff that people can just trade and let download for free and everything is, I think, really kind of interesting. So, what else have we got here? Matt Ligori's talking about PAX Unplugged. Finally something new near New Jersey. PAX Unplugged is in Philadelphia, and it's coming up in November. And PAX, for those of you that don't know, is the Penny Arcade Expo. So Penny Arcade is this webcomic mostly about video games. It's been around for forever. And they started their own video gaming expo years ago. And it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Now they've got multiples. They've got one in Australia. They've got one on the East Coast, one on West Coast. I think one in Texas. They're all over the place. And now they've decided to start doing tabletop gaming as well. And their first they've always had tabletop gaming at the PAX conventions. My wife and I went to PAX Seattle, which was the original one. We went to that back in 2008 to visit some friends of ours in Seattle, and also go to the convention. And it worked out pretty well, kind of a 2 for 1. And they didn't have as much tabletop gaming there at the time as I would have hoped, but they've grown it since, and now they're to the point where, they've decided we just need to have our own convention and just do it. So, just for tabletop, and that's been working out. It seems to be pretty interesting. Like they're doing, I get the feeling that they're maybe taking on Gen Con. I don't know. We'll see how they go about it, but it'll be kind of interesting to see. So. We're thinking about going, maybe. I'm not sure. It might be something I could also work into like a work thing as well. So, kill a couple of birds with one stone, which would be, or maybe several, which would be great. But we'll see how it goes. So, that's what PAX Unplugged is. And like I said, it's coming up in November, mid-November, early November, somewhere around there. So if you live out there in the East Coast and you're interested in that kind of thing, you may want to check it out. Let me see. Kilted Piper says, I will be at Gen Con this year, however. So excited. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Gen Con as well. I'll be there. We're getting in Wednesday afternoon, I think. I think we're getting in Wednesday afternoon. Most likely. And then I'll be there till leaving some point Sunday. So Kilted Piper, I'm planning on having a meetup for anybody who's at Gen Con. Anybody who's interested in meeting up, we're going to probably have a meetup on Saturday night. There's a sandwich shop that's not too far away, but not too close to the convention. If you're familiar with Indianapolis at all, there's like a big monument, and it's in a circle. Like you could drive into the circle and go around it and then drive out or whatever. I think you can drive in there, pretty sure. and they just call it the Circle. And it's not too far away from the convention center, maybe 3-4 blocks tops. And so on the Circle, there's a sandwich shop called, it's a small chain, I think, national chain, but small. I don't see them too frequently, called Potbelly Sandwiches. And I've had little kind of get-togethers and things like that there before. Like several years ago, a whole bunch of us from the Wargamers Consortium all met there after the dealer hall closed down during Gen Con. And so we were all in there. Plus the guys from Mini Wargaming, Matt and Dave were there. I think it was before Quirk and Steve worked there. But yeah, Matt and Dave were both at Gen Con that year, so it was a whole bunch of us hanging out in there. We kind of took over the shop, and it was a good time. So that's kind of my plan right now for having a meetup on Saturday night during Gen Con. So I know you guys are going to be there. You know, that'd be cool. Show up, we'll hang out. We have some lovely sandwiches. Josh McCarthy says 28mm terrain is also a good search term on Thingiverse. I can see that. That makes a good point, too, yeah. Look up Dutch Mogul on Thingiverse. He has tons of 15mm scale items. Well, that's kind of cool. Yeah, Origins is right now. It's in Ohio. So Origins is another tabletop gaming convention. It is smaller than Gen Con. Gen Con is... Last several years, Gen Con's been 60,000 people over 4 days. Origins, I think, is also 4 days, I think. But it's a good deal smaller. Maybe 15,000. Maybe 20, but I don't know. Origins is a lot more board game centric. Gen Con is like everything. You know, Gen Con is all kinds of tabletop gaming plus some things that are tabletop adjacent. Like you'll find anime booths, you'll find, LARPing foam sword booths, stuff like that. You'll find booths that sell leather mugs and, that kind of stuff that you might use when you go to a Renaissance fair. But it's mostly tabletop gaming. Origins is all tabletop gaming, but it's heavily based, at least it seems to from the people that I talk to. I haven't been in a long time. But it's mostly based off of board game stuff. So, like the stuff for... when I went to Origins, it was in 1995. So it was a long time ago, the last time I was there. And it's in Columbus, Ohio. But... at that time, like, we were running a miniatures game. Like, I was there volunteering with a company that it was a company called Iron Crown Enterprises. They made a game called Silent Death. Some of the people who got to go to Tabletop Minions Expo got to play Silent Death with my friend Peter. My friend Peter and I were the ones that used to go to Gen Con and run demos for that game, and then we also went to Origins one year. It's a spaceship combat game, and it's kind of old school, but it's fun. So, anyway, that there used to be, I think, a little bit more miniature gaming, but now it's mostly board gaming, which is fine. Board gaming is the biggest of the 4 genres within tabletop gaming in general, so, Let me see, what else have we got over here? Debating Gen Con, says Josh, but I have to work table 24 or 48 hour or 24 to 40 hours for the weekend to be able to go. Yeah, so if you're going to, and I haven't done this for quite some time, but probably 5 or 6 years ago, I went to Gen Con, maybe longer than that. Wow. Probably 2009, 2008, when I went to Gen Con. I've gone since then, obviously, but that was the last time that I went as a GM. So my friend Peter and I would run games, and so if you run a certain amount of games and you collect the tickets and you do all the processing and all that stuff, they will reimburse you for your badge. They will not give you a free badge, but you buy a badge, and then later on, like in September, they will mail you a check or whatever, or deposit the money or whatever, so that they're reimbursing you for your badge. That's how they take care of getting game masters to run stuff and things like that. To be able to be reimbursed for your badge and also get a free hotel room, you have to work and like run games. So, it's like literally at least 40 hours maybe in those 4 days. Maybe not. Maybe it's 35. But it's an amazing amount of time. It's really a long time. So that's a lot of stuff, to handle. Now, admittedly, it's probably one of the easier ways now these days to be able to get a hotel room at Gen Con, because the hotel room lottery that they do now for Gen Con is kind of crackers, and yeah, not real great that way. So, but I haven't done that in a long time. In 2010, when I went to Gen Con, I was there for Beasts of War, and I was doing interviews and stuff like that for them, and then 2011, 2012, and then 2013. By that point, I was doing this channel. I'd switched over in March of 2013, so I started doing that. And then 2014, I was there, and 2015, I was there, and then last year, 2016, I didn't go. So it was the first time in quite some time I hadn't gone. And then now I'm going again this year. But one of the big main reasons I'm going this year, honestly, is just because it's the 50th anniversary. The first Gen Con that I went to was in 1992, and that was the 25th anniversary. And I've got a red, I put a picture up on, I think, Instagram quite some time ago, earlier in the year. I've got a commemorative die for Gen Con, and it's a big red, 5 or 10, 6-sider, big red 8-sider, 6-sider, and it was, it's got a dragon on it, and it says Gen Con 25 on it. So I'm hoping they make something like that for Gen Con 50, because then I could have both of those, put them in a little shadow box, get crafty with it. I don't know, something like that. So yeah. Lake packing for holes. I don't know what holes is. Hey, Zombie Boy, how you doing? Yeah, we've just been kind of talking about game conventions, talked a little bit about TMX, talked a little bit about Gen Con, talked a little bit about PAX Unplugged coming up in November, which is the Penny Arcade guys and their first dedicated tabletop wargaming, or just tabletop gaming in general. They're not just tabletop wargaming. Tabletop gaming convention. The guys from PAX did play War Machine quite a bit for a while. I don't know if they still do, but they were playing a good deal of War Machine. Now, they're in the Seattle area, so maybe that was part of it, because, Privateer Press is based out of Seattle, and maybe, I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it or not, but I know they were doing that for a while. And now, I just found out about this, I don't know if you guys have seen this, like in the last week, they've announced, Privateer Press has announced that there's going to be a skirmish game for War Machine. They're finally deciding to jump on that bandwagon. I think it's going to be like a starter box. It's going to come with 2 small forces, and it's going to use the normal kind of slightly modified War Machine rules, but it'll be skirmish based. So that's kind of interesting to see how they're kind of jumping into that same bandwagon. We'll see if it works out for them there. So yeah, definitely. The New Painter asks, so how'd you like the live audience at TMX? Hope we didn't throw you off too much. No, I mean, it was fine. The issue is that from time to time, if I asked a question of the audience and they answered, that was fine. But if there was going to become more of a two-way conversation, I think that was problematic, because I was also in my mind thinking of the 300 plus people that were also watching it live, and I don't know that the people that were watching from home could hear the people in the audience much. So sometimes I was like trying to, like, if the conversation from the audience started getting a little longer, than a quick answer, I was like trying to figure out maybe how to like kind of get back on track a little bit, just because. And again, this was the first time I'd done it in front of a live audience and also in front of people, on the cam. So I got to kind of try to figure that out a little bit better for next year. I've got a long list of things I need to figure out a little bit better for next year, but it's not too long. It's not too bad. Like I said, things turned out pretty well. They went about as well as I thought they could, which was nice. And other than a little bit of technical glitches with the camera there, everything else worked out pretty well for the live show. And but yeah, no, having the audience was kind of fun. I don't seem to have any kind of fear of public speaking. I don't know. I know that for a lot of people, public speaking is really scary. And I know that when people like get surveyed for what are your top fears, a lot of them, public speaking is always up high. And I've never, ever, ever, ever had a problem with it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just some sort of genetic defect or whatever, but I've just never had a problem with it. But yeah, So yeah, I don't know. That's always just kind of been the case, I guess. Is so doing the live show in front of an audience wasn't throwing me off at all. Definitely. Ian asks, "Hi Adam, do you ever play old out-of-print games? My main games are Man of War and Epic 2nd Edition. I also want to get back into Warhammer 40k 2nd Edition. Do I play old out-of-print games? Well, I can't think of any. I mean, we were playing Mordheim a little bit for a while, but then, frankly, like Frostgrave and stuff like that kind of got in there and really took the place of that. Yeah, no, I guess I don't right now. I know that I've got some friends that prefer to play some older games, but I mean, I guess technically, I haven't played Silent Death in a while, but I've got friends that play Silent Death a good deal, and that's an older kind of out-of-print game. Although I think some other company called Metal Express is trying to bring it back, but I don't know. I don't know if they're just reprinting the old rules or if they're trying to make new rules or not. My friend Peter's still running the old rules that we used to play back in the 90s, so that's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't seem to too much. I don't know why. I mean, right now I really only play. Like, I'm playing Shadow War, I'm playing Frostgrave, I'm playing Song of Blades and Heroes, Age of Sigmar, of course. Thinking about getting back into 40k. I've been talking to some friends about it, actually, even again this morning. I want to start playing Conflict 47, which is basically bolt action, but weird, and which is fine. But I've got to get stuff built and painted for that, and I've just got so many other things on my plate right now, and sadly nobody else I know in the area anywhere even plays anything close to that game, so I'm going to have to build both forces to be able to make that happen. But that's kind of where it's at right now. So yeah, I don't really play a lot of old kind of games. So let's see here. Zombie Boy says, I'm trying to find some good Egyptian 28mm for Of Gods and Mortals. My gang have elected this and Armageddon for our next 3 to 4 months. Egyptian models for Gods and Mortals. I think that like Egyptian, like undead, or just regular old Egyptian? Because I think that Mantic has got, for Kings of War, has some sort of Egyptian faction. They may be trying to get into the niche that the Tomb Kings have kind of gotten away from. But if you're looking for non-undead Egyptians, that I'm not 100% sure of. There was a game called The Gods of Egyptus, something like that, but I don't know if they still have any stuff out there that you can get, so that's a good question. Ian says, getting some of the models can be a pain, though. Right now I'm painting 3 Man of War Imperial Iron Fists. It took about 1.5 years before they appeared on eBay. Yeah, that can be the problem, kind of frankly, with older games, is that if you need to get the specific dedicated models, then all of a sudden, you've got to basically search eBay, and that's kind of problematic. I'm going to pop out the chat here so I can see a little bit more of it at once. There we go. I find that, for me, if there's something I'm searching for on eBay, I will just put in like an alert, and then it will from time to time go, oh, hey, this thing showed up, and then you can look at it and go, okay, well, that's the right keyword, but it's not the right thing, or it's like, that's almost, but it's not a very good deal, or whatever. But you can put in alerts for stuff like that where it will show you, things that are currently using that particular keyword. I do the same with Craigslist, but I don't do it for models, really. I do it more for camera stuff. I get an email every time something Nikon related shows up on Craigslist nearby, within my region. But yeah, that kind of stuff helps. What else have we got? Zombie Boy says, I've noticed some tabletop mercenaries selling individual 8th edition models for £15 already on eBay. Am I wrong to get peed at folks for making more money on figs than the retail price of the box? I mean, it happens, it's a scarcity thing, as things become more rare, people charge more for them. If you don't agree with it, then I would say don't buy it. I don't know, I had somebody ask me recently in a YouTube comment, they're like, well, what do you think about people who recast, models that are out of print. Not recast models that are in print, but there's old school models that are out of print, and there's people that recast them and sell them on eBay and whatever. What do you think about that? And I'm like, that's still, I don't like the concept, frankly. I don't know. I mean, for a game like Man of War, because it's very specific sized, very specifically built boats, I can totally see why you need to sort of have that particular thing to make it work. I get that. But for a lot of games, if it's not boats, if it's just people, you can swap out models and use different models generally. Not always. Sometimes things are very specific, very Egyptian type models. That's what you need. So there you are. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I still don't like the concept of recasting, even if it's old stuff that's out of print, because at some point that company might decide to put it back into print, or whatever. And it's just, and like, obviously I don't like the concept of recasting stuff just because it's cheaper, like, oh, well, I could buy these things from, say, Forge World, but these Chinese recasters are way cheaper. Great, but that's technically illegal. You know what I mean? That's just sort of the way it works as far as that. That's just my personal opinion, so. Let's see here. Josh McCarthy says, I might meet up with some of the Chicago Skirmish folks to play some K-47. Oh, I didn't know those guys played. Well, that's cool. Yeah, those guys, a couple of the guys from Chicago Skirmish, Wargamers, Josh and Tim, who I know through moderator Matt. They're both guys who are friends of his, and they've run demos for Wreckage at Adepticon. I think I met both of them at Adepticon. I met Tim 2 years ago, maybe at Adepticon, and Josh this year. So, yeah. They were nice guys. They came up to TMX. They ran Walking Dead. And they had a really nice, cool, like, kind of jungle board set up and stuff like that with a lot of really nice terrain. It looked really good. And I watched, I know that a good amount of people, they ran a couple of different games of that. And some guys had some fun with that. So, yeah, it's cool that they play Conflict 47. I really want to get my stuff done. I just got so much other stuff, it's not like I'm like, oh geez, I just haven't really been painting lately. It's not that. It's that I've got so many other things to get. Well, the bat rep stuff is really, that's a lot of stuff to get done. I was actually, before this and before all the technical issues, I was down in the basement putting more washes on those GW like Ministorum shipping containers. Like GW finally made plastic shipping containers, but of course they look all gothic and stuff, which is sort of weird for shipping containers, but there they are. So yeah, I painted those, primed them, and now I was putting some wash on them, and I'm going to do some rust effects and a little bit of dry brushing and finish them up. I don't want to get fancy with them. But yeah, it's just a lot of time on building, the table. I've got a bunch of other stuff, but nothing's ever matched real well, and that's also kind of bugs me about bat reps, when the table doesn't look like it matches. The guys over at Mini Wargaming always do a really great job with that, but I'm pretty sure they've got at least one guy, if not two guys on staff, who just sit there and paint like pretty much all day. Like, that's full-time their job, I think Lee, I'm pretty sure, is one of the guys who paints for them all the time. And I know Rob has been getting more into it, although he does more video editing. But, so that helps a lot, So I can't teach the cats to paint. I've tried, they're just not interested. What else have we got? When I started my Blades of Corn army, I needed a blood secretor, and my choices were buy a start box and get a bunch of models I don't want, or buy one overpriced off of eBay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, in that situation, sometimes what you do is, especially those start collecting boxes, if there's a big figure in one of those start collecting boxes that you want. So in yesterday's video, I talked a little bit about how, just as an example, we ran the math one time on the Seraphon box, which is the Lizardmen. If you buy the Lizardmen Start Collecting box, all the figures in that box, when you add them up, they come to $85 retail, except for the Carnosaur. So if you add up all the models in that box minus the Carnosaur, it comes to $85, which is what you bought the box for. The Carnosaur model by itself is $85. So if you bought a Carnosaur by itself, it costs $85. If you buy the Start Collecting box for $85, you get a Carnosaur plus all the other models in there basically for free. So in those situations, sometimes, it's a little bit extra work, but what you could do is just buy a Start Collecting box and then sell off all the other parts on eBay that you don't want and make some of your money back. That's a way to look at it too sometimes. So, yeah, because I know what you're talking about. Like that Blood Secretor guy, he's a small part of that box, but there are people who are always looking for more models, who are like, well, I just need 2 more of these guys, or just 1 of these guys, because one of them got lost. I have 12 deep ones for House Hadros from the game Wrath of Kings. And they are completely painted, but they're not under bases yet. I bought special resin bases, which I don't usually do, but I did it for these, so they need to be attached to bases. There are a dozen of them. I have a photograph that shows that there are a dozen of them. Right now, I can only find 10 of them, and I think it's because a mouse in the basement stole 2 of them. Now, hear me out. They were on corks. I bought a package of corks, used corks, on eBay again, from some company. I'm assuming it's probably like a catering company, and they just keep all the corks, and then some guy's like, well, I'm going to take all these corks and sell them on eBay, because there are people who use them for crafts. There's dorks like me who will stick their guys on the corks, because they're going to go... I didn't stick them on pill bottles because I actually drilled pins into the bottom of their little tiny feet, little tiny fishman feet, and then stuck them into the corks, and then later on I'm going to drill the holes into the bases that I finish up, and then they're going to go in there. And I think that there's a mouse in the basement, and I think he stole 2 of them because he wanted to eat the cork. I think. I don't know where else they would have gone, but they're gone. Some of them were also knocked on the floor, I noticed, in my airbrush room. So that's why I think there was a mouse up there who dragged off 2 of them. So that is a bummer, and so I don't know where they are. But I don't want to go out and buy another box of deep ones, so I might start spooking around on eBay to try to find a couple deep ones so I can just kind of backfill and finish up my list. Yeah. Aha, see? War Gods of Egyptus by Croc Games. That's a place to check. I knew that name sounded familiar. So yeah, that's part of the deal. Sometimes you buy the box to sell off the rest of the models, and makes the economy go, or whatever. What else? Croc Games looks like it's from Indianapolis. Yeah, no, now that you mention that, I do remember that. They're real local to Gen Con. I do remember reading about that. Another company that's also real close to Gen Con is Megacon Games, the guys who do Mercs. They're based out of Indiana. I want to say south of Indianapolis, but I'm not sure. So for them, it's really easy just to come in and hit Gen Con and all that stuff. So that's cool. Josh McCarthy says that I think that they being the Chicago War skirmishers, I think they're just starting K-47. Josh has been posting his U.S. Army painting progress. Well, that's cool. Zombie Boy says, just finished my Neophyte hybrids, all ready to go. Now, how's the game working out, Adam? Pretty good so far. Kilted Piper says, my cats won't paint either. Yeah, lazy slackers. The new painter says, I need to make a painting robot. Well, that's, if you could make it work, I know a lot of people that would certainly like to buy one. Zombie Boy, I did just get a bargain. Tomb King Sphinx on sprue for 30 pounds. Tomb King Sphinx. Oh, yeah. No, for 30 pounds, that's pretty, especially on sprue. A lot of times I have to admit the problem with eBay is that I have a tendency to buy things from them sometimes, and then it goes through a lot of work of me having to try to strip the paint off of it and go through all that stuff just so that I can get it back to a point where I can start. If it's on the sprue, that's really kind of nice. Now, it sort of depends. I bought a whole bunch of basically used skeletons from, not on eBay, but from a local shop, and they were already all built. And that was actually really nice. Now, admittedly, they were also on squares, and I wanted to put them on rounds. So I did have to do some work there. And the person who had put them all together had never really heard of scraping off mold lines. So I had to do a bunch of that. But if you've ever stuck skeletons together from the sprue kit, that's not fun, frankly. So I was at least further ahead that way. And I got a good deal off of them, and that was great. So a big portion of my skeletons from my Death Army for Age of Sigmar are actually from that lot that I bought from my local shop. So... not every local shop does that. My local shop has a tendency to buy models, sometimes for cash, sometimes more for credit, and then he flips them on eBay. Or he knows certain people, like he'll pick something up and then he'll send me a message on Facebook and be like, hey, I got a box of skeletons here I bought it for somebody, and then I come look at it and either pass. Usually, lately I've been passing on it, but he does that sometimes. So if he knows people in the area who are like, oh, you come into my store and you buy this stuff, I just bought some, but if they don't bite, then he just flips it on eBay. So it works out pretty well that way. You can do relatively okay
in the wargaming space by flipping stuff on eBay, honestly. I had a friend from a couple towns over who that's what he used to just do. I mean, he would buy things that he was looking for, but he was constantly searching eBay so much for other stuff, he got a real feel for how much things cost. And then he would find things that were better deals than they really ought to be, and then he would buy them, and then just sometimes he would like literally just put them into a different box and then ship them to somebody else for more money. Other times he would maybe strip them real quick and then, sell them, or he would sometimes he would just prime right over. If the paint wasn't on too thick, he would just prime them like white or black and then sell them as, primed such and such and go from there. It kind of depended, but he did a lot of flipping like that, constantly at the post office. So if that's the kind of an extra little hobby for you when you've got the time, then it's not a bad deal. He basically paid for his hobby stuff by doing, the profits from his flipping. So Kilted Piper says mostly the cats just knock the models off the table. This is why I don't let the cats in the basement. Now, if I did let the cats in the basement, then that mouse down there probably wouldn't be such an issue, I suspect. But I think really in the grand scheme of things, keeping cat hair and things knocked off, I think just if I have to weigh the options, I'm going to keep the cats out of the basement if I can. That's going to be easier. Ian says, hi, Adam. Does the upcoming new Adeptus Titanicus game interest you? There has been some moaning that they are moving the scale from 6mm to 8mm in the new game. 6mm to 8mm. That doesn't seem like a huge difference between the two, but I suppose it's a slight difference. I mean, honestly, if anything, it almost seems kind of, and this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, but it seems as if Games Workshop has already done that to some degree with the newer models they're making. Like a lot of the models, like if you look at the new Death Guard models that came in the new 8th edition starter box, and you compare them to Plague Marines, they're a little bit taller, more than a little bit taller in some situations, yet they're not Primaris Death Guard. Like the Primaris Space Marines are supposed to be about a head taller, but that's part of the story. The Death Guard are just a little bit bigger, and they did the same thing with a lot of Age of Sigmar. A lot of the new models are just physically bigger than some of the older models. So it kind of makes sense to me to some degree that they're doing that with Adeptus Titanicus, and it's partially probably because they want to be able to put lots of really great knockout detail into those models, and they have to just make them a little bit bigger to maybe pull that off. So I can see that. All that being said, I don't know that I'd be interested. I don't know. It depends, I guess, on how many models you need. If you need like lots of stands of tiny little rhinos and stuff like that, then probably not. I never played any of the old. I never played Epic. I never played. I think there used to be an Adeptus Titanicus or something like that before. I never played any of those real super crazy tiny small scale stuff. I played like BattleTech, which is basically 6mm, but I never played into the GW ones like that. So I don't know if I would get into it or not. I guess I'd be interested to check it out. I would definitely play a demo. Like maybe if I doubt it'll be out in time for for Adepticon next year, but maybe if they do get it out in time for Adepticon next year and they put it out, I would play a demo there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have an itch to play it. Let's just say that. Ian follows up with, I'm all for 8mm. I hope they do infantry. 8mm is a good compromise between detail and the mass amount of troops the game will be trying to convey. Would love to see 8mm Primarchs. Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting. So yeah, I could see that too, definitely. So yes, now there's some chuckling about my stolen deep ones by the mouse thief. Josh McCarthy says, my wino coworkers used to give me corks every week. I now have hundreds of wine-soaked corks. I'll have to keep the mouse thing in mind. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, like I said, the corks that I bought are all for something called Prosecco, which I don't even know exactly what it is. It's, is it like a, what is it like?
Sparkling,
it's a
like champagne.
Sparkling like champagne, but not champagne, according to my wife. It's, according to her, it's lovely. And so, but there was a lot of it. I mean, I think I bought 50 corks for like $8 shipped. And so, like I said, I assumed it was either a restaurant or a catering company or something like that, where they're just like, well, we'll just save the corks. And then someone's like, yeah, I'll take them home with me and sell them for crafts or whatever. But I was just wanted them because I normally, like I said, use pill bottles because I'm putting the entire base and everything on top of the pill bottle with some poster putty. But with these guys, because it was just going to be their tiny little feet, because I'm painting their bases separately, I just drilled into their feet and glued pieces of paperclip up inside there. So then I would just take that and just stick the paper clips, the pointy parts sticking out of the bottom of their feet, into the corks, which worked great. They were a little tippy sometimes, but not too bad. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe eventually I'll probably, as I'm cleaning the basement, find all of a sudden a chewed up cork, and hopefully a relatively unmolested deep one, and I'll be able to put him back onto another cork and call it good. So, yeah. Zombie Boy says, I just checked out Croc Games, and it's perfect for me. Glad I asked. Cheers. Well, see, glad we're able to help. Zombie Boy also says, I checked out Sam's blog pics. Some beautiful work. Yeah, Sam was at TMX. He was at Tabletop Minions Expo. He was there Saturday and Sunday. He taught 2 classes on Saturday and a class on Sunday, and it was very much just kind of walk up and listen to him kind of show stuff off. Because of the way the room was oriented, there wasn't a great way for him to have like a classroom, so it was just a lot more open format this year. I think next year we're going to have him possibly in a separate room, and then there will probably be a fee to take his class, kind of like you do at Adepticon, which will be beyond the $8 or whatever on Saturday to get in, or $5 on Sunday to get into the convention. So you'll pay him some money, so he makes money off of that, and then it will be a lot more probably in-depth classes, because it will also be away from some of the other noise and stuff like that. But for this time, we just put him over in the corner, and then you probably saw some pictures on social media of people all kind of just sitting around watching, and him talking and explaining and talking about wet blending and this and that and the other thing. I'm pretty sure I saw the noob painter over there at one point, checking out, during one of his classes, so that's cool. But yeah, he enjoyed it himself. He had a good time, and he's been doing a lot of teaching. He's actually going to be teaching some classes up in Minneapolis coming up. If you follow him on, let's say, Instagram, which I think is just Samson Minis on Instagram, I think he's got some sort of classes he's going to be teaching up in Minneapolis area. So if you're up there, you could check it out. It's coming up in July, I think. But yeah, he does do amazing work, and it's amazing to watch him do it because he does it so quickly. That's also the thing that sometimes drives me a little nuts, is that I'm a quicker painter than I used to be, but I watch him put stuff out, like really, really good stuff, and he does it really, really quickly, and it's crazy. So, yeah. Zombie Boy says, I do some painting for my friend's miniature company on Kickstarter, but he's just starting out and pays me with beer and free figs. Well, that's not the end of the world. Matt Ligori says, I'd do my real job for beer and free figures. Well, okay. Well, I don't know how you'd pay like rent and stuff and eat, but other than that, yeah, it's not too bad. Vindicatus says there are worse things than being paid in beer. I think being paid in gum, like in those commercials from like last year, like the guy always wanted to be paid in gum. That I never quite understood that particular financial choice. So, Kilted Piper says that Prosecco is sparkling Swedish white wine. Very good stuff. Well, there you go. And Michael Strickler says, I like my Patron corks, easy to hold, and they smell great. I don't know. And Zombie Boy says, I'm a traditional wargamer, and I drink real ale. All right, well, that's fair enough. I generally, if I'm going to drink alcohol, it's generally bourbon. And I guess the bourbon that I buy does have a cork, but it's sort of a smaller one. I don't know that you could glue a 28mm figure to them. It's a narrower cork. So I don't know that would work. But, yeah. You can't see it right now, but it's back there. The new painter says, speaking of Sam, if you can get him on for more YouTube vids, do his speed painting demo. That was great and probably would make for a good vid time-wise. Yeah. I'm getting closer. For those of you that watched the Friday video, you saw the new light setup, and I need to clear out a little bit more space around kind of where I sit down there in the basement, in the nerd bunker, and I'm going to be probably doing a little bit more of that hopefully tomorrow, maybe a little bit this afternoon. It's hard to say. This is a busy weekend because I've got a live show on tomorrow, and then I've got 2 Father's Day things to do, one for father-in-law, one for my father, and I've got a birthday party to go to tonight, so it's going to be kind of a short weekend as far as that's concerned. But all that being said, my plan is to get Sam back down into, to get him back into the channel, and to do that I need to get him down into the basement, and to do that I need to fix up things a little bit more right now. Where I'm sitting when you're watching me on the camera, I need to have, for painting tutorials, I need to have another camera, not right here, but on this side. It needs to be on my left side. There needs to be a camera pointing, because as I'm holding the models here, the camera has to be kind of shooting almost from over my shoulder so you can see, what Sam's doing. When we first started doing some of the videos, we put the camera on the right side, but then when it's shooting this way over the top of your hands, this hand is getting in the way of the painting, so then we may switch to that side. The thing is that there's like a big shelving unit over here right now, so that you can't see. It's just out of the frame, but it's there. I need to move that stuff, and then I can put a camera there. But I can't just move things back because there's actually a wall right behind the shelving unit. So even though I've moved down to the basement and I have more room than the old studio, it's still where I put things, it's not ideal on the left side. On the right side, I can spread out, but unless Sam starts painting right-handed or left-handed, that's not going to work, and I'm not going to be able to paint left-handed. I can barely paint right-handed half the time. So, yeah, it's all these weird little technical things that you think about that you don't think about that actually come into play. You know, the first time, like I said, when I wanted to start doing a painting tutorial, I put the camera, for whatever reason, over my right shoulder, and then realized as I was painting that my right hand was in the way, and so that wouldn't work. So that's why I had to fix that issue. Anyway. Yeah, a speed painting video would be good. I've done a couple, right? Or maybe, well, no. I did the one about how to quickly paint your skeletons, which is kind of a speed painting video, sort of. And I'm doing another one soon, very soon, about how to paint your Imperial Guard. They are currently built, textured, primed, and base coated all tan, which is part of the primer. And they're even stuck onto painting sticks with poster putty. So everything is ready to go for that particular demo or that particular tutorial, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to quick paint them, and they're going to be for my Shadow War kill team. But I need to get that second camera thing figured out and move that shelving unit and all that jazz, and then we should be fine. So yeah, that's how it'll go. Coming up soon. Vindicatus. Vindicatus? Sorry, I'm not good at pronouncing that kind of stuff. Speaking of Sam, I just got back into the wargaming hobby since 15 years hiatus. Adam, you're one of the first YouTubers I found, and your video interviewing top painters was a massive help. Thanks. Well, good. I'm glad that helped a lot. It was a fun video to do, and people responded really well to it. It was interesting, like, especially as I started to edit it. I had a couple of people afterwards say, well, why didn't you just have it so that for each question, like, person number 1 answered, then person number 2, then person number 3? Why did you switch it up in between? And it worked better, I thought, for the flow when I started to switch it up. Originally, my plan was to just have each person answer and have them, like, you know, person number 1, person number 2, person number 3 as I went through each question. But the flow worked a little bit better when I started to switch it up, which is what I did, which is why I eventually went with. But yeah, it was kind of fun. It was interesting to see how many different painters had how many different answers to these questions. You know, like, oh, is color theory, you know, important? And a bunch of them would be like, oh, absolutely, you have to understand color theory. And other people were, you know, all the questions were aimed towards beginners. And then other ones were like, no, you don't need to know it at all. That's fine. You know, like, are good brushes important? And some of them were like, oh yeah, absolutely, you got to have good brushes. And other ones like, no, you don't need good brushes. And it's interesting. And hopefully it showed people, especially newer painters, people who were getting into the beginning, hopefully it showed them that you don't need that. There's not a specific way to follow. There's not a specific trail. That you kind of make your own trail a little bit, and you go from there. You find out what works for you. Definitely research, definitely learn, but then don't take it as gospel. Take it as, okay, that's what this guy does, that's cool, but I'm going to modify things a little bit and tweak things a bit and use it so that it works best for me. I think that was the big and most important thing. So, let's see here. I've used the salt technique for my Armageddon Mechanicus scenery this week to a great effect. Yeah, I keep meaning I need to get some of that pump hairspray. I think we have some salt, like big salt, like sea salt. Well, maybe I need to buy both of those things. I should get some at the grocery store next time I'm there. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, the salt technique is cool, and I should try it on. Well, most of my stuff right now is kind of painted. I frequently, instead myself, when I'm doing Rust, I generally do the sponge technique. So I take like that kind of dark gray spongy stuff that's inside blister packs when you buy models, or it's it's the same. It's that foam stuff, and I take some of that and I like rip a corner off it so it's kind of uneven, and then I just dip it in some brown paint, and then I just sort of dab it in areas, and that's how I'm doing most of the Rust that I'm doing currently. But the salt and hairspray technique that Sam showed in the video that he did on the channel is really kind of cool. It does work out well. It's maybe a little faster, and I think one of the reasons that I stick with the sponge one instead is because I have a little bit more control over it. I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's they both kind of come up with sort of the same overall end product, I think. So let's see here. I saw a bottle of Bombay Sapphire on your cabinet in one video, Adam. That stuff will put hair on your chest or kill you. It's, I think, still back there. I don't generally drink gin. I'm more of a bourbon guy, but we have that bottle because I'm not sure why we do. I think someone brought it here for a party. I think that's what happened. To do that, I need to get him down into the basement, says the nude painter. That sounds sinister taken out of context. Well, yes, it does. The basement is where I do all my... That's the nerd bunker. It's where I do all my nerd stuff. And that's where I shoot the videos now. So, yeah, I suppose. It does sound a bit sinister, but it's not. He can totally leave whenever he wants. Josh McCarthy says, "Oh man, I've just started trying videos. I didn't expect it to be easy, but there's so much more than I thought. The fact that you're able to put out such great quality vids every week blows my mind." Well, thank you. I mean, it's taken me time. When I first started, I was using a lapel mic, and that worked. It sounded better than a lot of people will just set up a camera and just shoot, which is fine. But when you want to start figuring out what's the best thing to start improving on, the audio is one of the better things to start improving on. If people will say, "Well, I can't do videos because I don't have a camera." I'm like, "Well, you got a phone, right? Like you could literally shoot episodes with your phone." That being said, it is better if you can get, like, if you can buy a decent mic that you can plug into your phone, and they do make those, then that'll help, because now it'll sound better, because a lot of the people, our audience, the people who watch the videos that we do for wargaming, tabletop wargaming, are very different than many other audiences. First of all, they're the best audiences in the world. Just, if I'm going to pander, I might as well start there. But what I'm talking about is that if you read a bunch of stuff about how to make videos for YouTube, normally they're like, don't ever make a video longer than 5 minutes. People will get bored and leave. As you know, we wargamers, that's not the case. If you make videos that are shorter than 5 minutes, eventually people are going to get annoyed because they have to keep looking for the next video and then doing all that stuff, because they're listening to the video while they're painting, okay? So if you make a 2-hour video, I'm sure several of you probably are hobbying right now. Some of you might not be, but the people who are listening to this later on probably are hobbying. I listen to stuff while I hobby. This type of 2-hour longer format, very frequently it is something that you're listening to while you're hobbying. So if the audio sucks, then that's problematic. So you can start shooting, and you definitely should start a channel if you're interested and you want to go down that direction. Just do it as soon as possible. Just start. Just use your cell phone and make it happen. Try to get the cell phone to be steady, like put it on a tripod or lean it on something. Don't hold it too much because you'll shake, and that gets kind of visually jarring for people. So that's number one. Number two is then look into trying to make the audio better, because cell phone audio sometimes is not the best. And then down the road, start looking into making the camera better and go on in that direction. But if you just decide to wait and go, well, I was going to make videos, but I need to get this camera and that camera and this microphone and stuff like that, it's going to take forever. But it is the second hobby for me, honestly. The whole reason I started this channel, to be perfectly honest, is because I wanted to learn more about video production. And I've said this a bunch of times, and I've always felt if you want to learn a new skill, you need to apply it to a hobby. So that's why I was like, well, I'll make videos about my hobby, which is tabletop wargaming, and that's how I started doing it. But now it's basically the second hobby. I'm a wargamer and also a video maker. So it's just kind of the way it works. But definitely, if you're interested in doing it, Yeah, definitely start. There's so many different resources, just like there is with wargaming. You've got YouTube and all these different internet resources to be able to find out how to do these things. All of it's right there, so it's fun. Zombie Boy says there are other wargame YouTube videos. Technically, yes, yeah, there are. No, it's true. Yeah. Kilted Piper asks, what are the best size pins for painting in sub-assemblies? That's a good question. When I'm painting in sub-assemblies, I did a video about it quite some time ago, I generally use toothpicks, actually. So, like, in that example, there were my Warriors of Chaos. So they're the normal Chaos Warrior guys from fantasy that have been around forever. They are a very simple model to put together. You like snap the front and the back together, and then you glue the head on, and then their arms, like in the capes, because they have the big capes, there's just like a socket on each side, kind of right where like their elbows should be. There's just a socket, and then you can glue in, like 2 weapons or a weapon and a shield. So because I was going to be building them holding a weapon and a shield, I glued the weapons in first because they don't really block a lot as far as painting is concerned. But the shields are big, tall, kind of tower-style shields. So I thought, and I'm usually not a sub-assembly guy, but I was like, well, I really should probably keep those shields off while I'm painting. So what I did, if you watch the video, is I just drilled a little hole into the round part on the back of the shield that's going to go into the socket on the model. I drilled a little skinny hole in there, and then I just glued the tip of a toothpick into it with some CA glue. And then I had a shield on a stick, basically. And then I painted the shield, primed it, all that stuff, did that to the rest of the guy as well. And then when the time came, I just took a clippers, the normal clippers you clip out from the sprues with, and I just clipped off the toothpick and left it flush with the ball on the back of the shield, and then I just glued the shield in there, and it worked out just great. So I don't generally use metal to hold up my stuff for sub-assemblies. Now, if you're talking about pinning a model, like a lot of the older War Machine models, because they were so bulky in metal, you needed, and they weren't like they went together any way you wanted. It was a ball and socket sort of situation, so you could position the arm any way you wanted to. In those situations, it was best then to pin the model. So what you did was you drilled a hole on one side, you drilled a hole on the other side, on the arm and in the socket, and then I would use a paper clip and then just get it in there. It takes a bit of work. It's a little bit of a pain in the rear, but yeah, you can do it. So let me see here. Chris Desert says, I, Vindicators, will use this account so that it is easier for you. I apologize. I just am not... I think I was mispronouncing it. He goes on to say, I appreciated the fact that almost all of them had different answers in the painting video. It really rammed home that there is no right way to do something and there isn't a 100% right technique. Absolutely. Michael Strickler says directly afterwards, absolutely. We are in concurrence. Ian says, since watching your videos, the amount of painting I do has gone up massively. Now making good progress on several hobby projects. Thanks for all the advice. Well, I'm glad to hear that it helps. I mean, besides hopefully the advice that is useful, I also just find it, I'm much more likely to be painting if I can listen to something while I'm doing it. Some people like to listen to music. I don't seem to like to listen to music while I'm painting. I want to listen to someone talking. I don't know why. Sometimes it's an audiobook. Sometimes it's podcasts. Sometimes it's videos and things like this. But that's just kind of the way it works for me, at least. Your mileage may vary. Zombie Boy says, Ian, I agree my output has gone up a lot since discovering Adam's show, as I religiously paint and listen every week or so. Inspires me and my friends in my wargaming gang and are shocked by... Oh, and my friends in my wargaming gang are shocked as I used to be a lazy painter. Well, good. I think it's... There's something, I think, a big benefit, too, to getting things actually finished and then having your friends go, oh, wow, that's finished. That's really nice, or whatever. Or even just like, oh, wow, it's finished. You get that benefit from that. And, yeah, like I've got a bunch of stuff, like I said, I'm kicking around. I'm basically right on the bubble as far as getting back into 40K. And I know I've got a bunch of Chaos stuff, but I probably need to add some pieces, and I definitely want to add those cool new Death Guard models. So I know that that's a bunch of painting I got to get done. Plus, I got a bunch of painting I got to get done for both the Bat Rep terrain stuff, and then also a couple of different kill teams for Shadow War. So, I need to buckle down. So I've been trying to do it as much as I can. The Tabletop Minions Expo got kind of slowed me down on that stuff because I was getting all prepared for that, and then that kind of stuff. But I've been getting back into it over the last week or so. I've been really getting back into painting. I've been going down as much as I can. If I've got I've got half an hour until we have to go do whatever thing we have to go do. All right, I'm going to go downstairs and throw a quick layer of wash on some terrain, because it's kind of picking your battles. If I've got the time, I know I can do certain things. I couldn't sit down and say, okay, well, I'm going to start painting these guys' coats, because I would only get maybe 2 of them done out of a line of 5, and so that might not work in that amount of time. But I can throw some wash on a piece of terrain or something real quick, and then we'll go. So using the time, just being a little bit more efficient with it, I find helps me a ton too. So. Josh McCarthy says, regards to audio, yeah, I made one video, deleted it, and bought a blue snowball, 1,000 times better. This is a blue Yeti that I'm using, but the blue snowball is also a really nice mic. Both of them are, blue does make really nice mics for a decent price. Real audio technician type fancy people will sometimes poo-poo the Yeti audio, but they buy, $600 microphones, so I don't want to go down that route. This thing, when I bought it, I think that this thing retails for about $150, but I happened to get it on sale for like $100 or $109, something like that. So, and it just works really nicely. Blue microphones work really nicely, and that does really help a lot for video making, because again, like I said, your video can be great, super informative, well lit, all that stuff, but if the audio is super crazy annoying, then it has a tendency to drive people away. So let's see. Michael Strickler says, question about paint storage. My desk is kind of small, and they are starting to take up precious space. How does everybody store their paints, and is there a good vertical shelf someone has found? What I would tell you to do is, and I haven't done this yet because I don't have the space figured out yet. Again, with the basement, it's cinder block walls, so it's kind of hard to hang things on them. So I haven't quite figured that thing out. But I've seen friends of mine who are good painters and who have a lot of paint. They search around on either eBay. They search back and forth between eBay and Amazon. And what you're looking for are clear acrylic, they're fingernail polish shelves. For companies that, you're a company that does, nail polish, whatever, manicures, pedicures, that kind of stuff. I don't get them done too frequently, so I can't think of the name. But yeah, those companies that do manicures and pedicures have tons and tons and tons of nail polish, and they make these big, they're maybe 2 feet across by maybe 3 feet tall, maybe 2 feet tall, and they're clear plastic acrylic shelves, and they're designed to put different nail polish in. And so I know a bunch of painters who buy those, and then they use them, and then they can keep GW size pots in there. They can keep Vallejo type, taller dropper bottles. That's the type of thing you want to start looking for on eBay and Amazon to find something good. I used little bamboo spice racks. They're tiered, and they're designed to sit on a counter. And I got them at Walmart or something like that. I was walking through the home goods area in Walmart, and I found them. And I use those because I keep them then stacked on my desk. But if you've got a lot of paints and you want to take up way less space and get them up on the wall instead, those acrylic, like I said, nail polish shelves or whatever, those are the way to go. Definitely. Oh, see, Josh McCarthy says wall mount fingernail polish shelves I've seen. Yep, that's exactly the same thing. I'm kind of far behind on all of this, but it's okay. Zombie Boy says it's very cathartic listening to show and painting, but then I suppose that's why we do it. Absolutely, yeah. What else we got? Chris Dessert says I can't drop links in chat. Yeah, that's always kind of an issue. But I bought some nice organizers on Amazon for pretty cheap. They aren't as vertical as I'd like, but they're good enough and cheap. Yeah, definitely. Zombie Boy says I always felt pressured and passed to work for GW, and one makes this own miniatures, but I'm improving and enjoying it much more from last year. My biggest issue is that they had a back catalog of painted stuff in every new game, and I always had to catch up. That's part of the problem with buying stuff a lot, is that it's really easy to buy stuff, and you get this little endorphin rush of oh sweet, I bought this new game, or I bought these new models or whatever. but it just adds more and more and more and more stuff to the list of things you've got to get actually painted, and that can be a problem long term. I've done a video about it. I would do a pachow here, but I can't because it doesn't work, because I'm not, editing this. But yeah, so that's kind of the trick, is that I know people who limit, like there's a guy, he's got a channel on YouTube as well. He's the Wisco Horn Dog, and he mostly plays Saga and Infinity. His name is Raj, and he runs a convention here in Wisconsin called Wapaka, like the orc Wa. And it's actually in Wapaka, Wisconsin. There's a place called Wapaka. It's not run by orcs, as far as I can tell. Anyway, that convention is all miniatures related, and it's in January, I think. And he, on his channel, talks about how he doesn't want to buy a new model until he gets his models all painted. He has, spreadsheets, and he's figured out what he's got, and he's been selling stuff and getting rid of things and doing stuff, and he's very Spartan about it, which is awesome. I am not anywhere near there and never will be, but I am trying to be very conscious about, I don't want to buy new models right now because they're cool. I'm possibly going to buy a little bit more of that terrain that came in the Shadow War box, because I want to add more of it to my Shadow War table that I'm building. Maybe just the walkways and stuff. They didn't give you enough of those walkways, in my opinion. So I want to get a little bit more of that. But I'm doing it for a purpose. I'm doing it for the channel, so I can explain it away that way. But the fact is that I want to make sure I don't buy a whole bunch of new models that I'm like, oh, I just want to buy these because they're cool, and then they're just going to sit on a pile. You know what I mean? You don't want to go down that road. At least I don't. So definitely. Chris Dessert says, if you search for clear plastic multi-level craft organizer, those are the ones I'm talking about. They're $13 a piece. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely. VJ Morph is here. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's 1 o'clock, 1:15 where I'm at, but I have no idea. It's probably Sunday where you are right now, I think. What else have we got here? I'll second the nail polish holders, according to the Noob Painter. I've got 2 on the side table. Yeah, you can see a lot of people, if you ever watch any of Vince Ventruella's videos, he does a live show on Wednesdays called Warhammer Wednesday, and kind of in the background he does it he just films straight from his computer at his hobby space, and you can see a bunch of his kind of paint stacking stuff in the background, and it works out pretty well that way. But yeah, again, those nail polish holders, especially if they're clear, because then they don't block you can see the colors easier and get at your stuff if you like being real organized. I currently seem to like being completely unorganized, so I've just got a whole bunch of them laying on a table, which is not awesome, but it seems to sort of work for me, maybe. VJ Morph, don't want to go over any old ground. I guess everything 8th edition has already been discussed. As it turns out, no. We haven't talked about 8th edition at all, strangely. Not really, technically. So, yeah. I think VJ Morph is Wisco Horn Dog, but with a C. Wisco, like Wisconsin, short for Wisconsin, because he's a Wisconsin boy like myself. VJ Morph says, Adam, get the laser cut walkways from TT Combat. I guess I want the stuff to match the stuff I've already got somewhat. I want some of my walkways, and I posted a picture of some of the walkways that I've been scratch building because I want them to look scavenged and scratch built. But the other walkways that I want to look like they've been there for a while and they're all rusty and crappy, those I want to look to match up, I guess. So I'm down the road, I'm going to probably build a secondary board that's going to be probably all MDF walkways and stuff like that. That will be a totally different type of build. But for right now, I'm trying to stick with a lot of the normal kind of GW type stuff just because I've already got a bunch of it already. Then I bought the box set for Shadow War, and now I want it all really to match a lot better. So that's why I might buy just a little bit more just to make it in there, but we'll see how it goes. 4:15 a.m. Sunday morning over in the Australia. All right, cool. Daniel Antil says, are the Tabletop Minions dice available yet? They were for sale at Tabletop Minions Expo, actually. I need to get and you've heard this before, sadly, but I need to get the web store set up. And when I do, then they'll be available for the pins, the dice. Otherwise, they sold pretty well during the convention, so people did enjoy them. And Yeah, but I that's another thing that's on my list of things. Now that the convention's done, I'm working on, between now and Gen Con, frankly, I'm working on bat rep stuff, getting prepared for that, and second camera so I can do tutorials and have Sam back in the basement. And then third thing is the web store. Another thing I'm going to add to the web store is also going to be, I want to do dice bags. And I have them 90% designed, and then I have a producer all ready to go. Like, I know the company that I'm going to work with to get them manufactured, so then they'll also be available on the web store. But yeah, it's coming, definitely. And eventually I'm going to actually run out of dice, and then I'm going to reorder. And I think this time I'm going to get 2 batches. I'm going to get red ones and black ones, and then I will probably sell them. If you want to buy all red, or if you want to buy all black, or if you want to buy a bag with black and red, all the ink, the pips, and the logo will all be in white, and then black and red will mix together well with the logo. So I might try to do that. It's going to cost twice as much up front, but I can probably make that happen, I think. Getting the dice from Chessex, which is where I got these dice produced, it's not terrible. It takes 5 to 6 weeks, but it's not terrible. I mean, the price is okay. It would be. I would love to make it so all 6 sides of the dice were custom, but they don't even offer that. There are companies that do, that are really expensive in comparison. Chessex seems to only offer 1 side, I think. Actually, I should go back and look. Maybe they changed, but yeah, that's where it's at right now. So yeah. Where are we at? VJ Morph says, I'm a bit OCD too. Yeah, I am being a little bit OCD with this, especially because it's for battle reports. The fact that I'm going to be, I want this table to look nice on video and stuff like that. Like, if it was just me playing with my friends, we would just mix a bunch of junk and go, no, that beer bottle is a piece of terrain as well now, or whatever. But when I'm trying to put it on camera and all that kind of stuff for YouTube, I want it to look a little bit nicer. So that's where the OCD kind of comes from in a little bit on that. Otherwise, as far as OCD, like, I'm not a big clean freak, Lord knows. You can ask my wife. So yeah. Chris Taylor says, I wasn't going to get 8th edition, but I ended up going to my friendly, what does FLG stand for? It's Friendly Local Game Store. I always forget the local part. My friendly local game store at 11 p.m. last night to pick up a copy. Yeah, both the game stores here in town had midnight kind of launch party things going on. I mean, they were small, but like one shop he said he only had maybe like 3 people who stayed till midnight, and the other shop, but he didn't advertise it super well, and the other shop had, I think, more people, but they kicked him out right away. Like, it wasn't like, okay, cool, now we're going to sit and talk about the games and this and that and everything. They were just basically like, okay, well, you bought it, get out. So that's fine. Yeah, definitely, there's a bunch of people that I know that right now are already sitting on it and working on their stuff, which is cool. I didn't go last night because, I thought about it. I was kind of out and about. I could have, but I was really tired, so I didn't. But like I said, I'm heading to the shop probably this afternoon after I get done with this, because I need to buy some terrain, and I need to buy some layman medium, and I need more sepia wash, and I need a bunch of stuff, actually, as it turns out. Josh McCarthy says that the Tabletop Minions dice roll really well, too. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear it. Chris Desert says, I'm building my new orc army. So it's going to be a bit for me. So it's going to be a bit for me before I can give it a whirl. So many boys to paint. Yeah. Now, that being said, the battle reports that I have seen so far, predominantly from Mini Wargaming, admittedly, but the battle reports that I've seen so far for 8th edition, where orcs are concerned, orcs are like a really decent army again. Admittedly, you need a lot of them, but that should be the case generally anyway. So, yeah, orcs seem to have not been like crazy underpowered like they've sort of been in the last couple of editions. So that's really cool. And same with Tyranids, from what I understand, too. So that's really cool. Chris Taylor says, I hope the This Is How I Roll t-shirts get reprinted at some point. So I've been thinking about t-shirts as well. For those of you that missed it or didn't see it last time, back in beginning of early 2016, February, I want to say, yes, I had a t-shirt sale. So it was a 3-week pre-sale where basically you could prepay for the t-shirts so that when the time came, like, I think it ended on the 1st of March. You had to get in your pre-order, prepay by March 1st. Then I got the shirts printed up locally. I had already worked with the local printer to get the bare minimum amount of t-shirts, which was 24. I got 24 of them printed ahead of time so I could show printed samples, and I could wear a t-shirt in the video talking about the t-shirt and the whole deal. And then I had him hold on to the screens, because normally if you go to a screen printer to get t-shirts made or whatever, they wash the screens out as soon as they're done printing because they want to use them on the next job. So I said, is it cool if you hold on to the two screens, the black and the white ink, for 3 weeks and then print out? And so that I know the guy, and so he agreed. So the day that the ordering ended, I called him or emailed him actually all the numbers of the sizes, and then they ordered and the whole deal, and it was fine. And it worked out well, and then I shipped out all the shirts and all that stuff. I'm looking now for potentially the ability, instead of doing it in that really limited 3-week window and then mailing all the stuff and going through all that stuff, I'm looking at maybe getting into doing more shirts, but having them up kind of all of the time and using some sort of print-on-demand service. The first t-shirt print-on-demand service, I believe, was Cafe Press. You could go to Cafe Press, and that was back in the late 90s. I remember buying shirts from Cafe Press, and they always looked like garbage because they actually just printed an iron-on out and then ironed it onto the shirt. And you could see, like here on this shirt, this is not an iron-on shirt, but you would see like a line going around where they cut the iron-on, like this, and then it would go this way and down. And so if you had a design that was on there, it looked squirrely because you could see the outline of where the iron-on was ironed on. Well, that was 20 years ago. Now all that stuff is direct printed directly onto the t-shirt, full color. Not like the t-shirts that I did last year were black and white on red t-shirts. That was it. I could do complete full color t-shirts now for a little bit more, but not a ton more. So I'm thinking about looking into doing that. Now the downside is, well, it's not that big of a downside. One of the reasons that one of the benefits to doing a 3-week t-shirt deal was because then there was a bit of sense of urgency, and then people ordered it or they didn't, whatever, and they got it done, and then I could ship them, and it wasn't sitting on it forever. And I could also only print as many as I needed, which was a big benefit. If you just decide to come with a t-shirt, print a whole bunch of them, especially with gamers, you're going to end up with a lot of smalls left over, which we don't want. So, but being print on demand, that's not an issue. And I don't have to ship them and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking into doing that. I've been coming up with some design ideas in my head. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I just don't. I mean, the quality will be nice and they'll be fine. The price will be a little bit more, but they'll be full color. I don't know. I don't know. I think just putting them out there and just saying, hey, here's a bunch of, like, I'm not just going to put a design with the logo on the front because, but why you want something that's funny. Like, one of the reasons that original shirt design I sold worked out was because it had a funny thing on it. I have seen people wearing the shirt. My friend Kevin and I were at a thing, and he was wearing the shirt, and a couple of people were like, oh, I really like that shirt, and I like, because it was funny, and they're all gamers we were at a thing in Madison. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But that is definitely a plan. Shirts are coming, let's just say that. I think I've talked for too long, and now I've gone past on the thingy. I'm going to back up just a bit. Backing up. Orc Army, so many boys to paint. Yep. Maybe I didn't go back as far as I thought I needed to. The beer accidentally becomes terrain. That does happen, yes. Ian says, the first video of yours I watched was the one about buying too many models, something I think a lot of us are guilty of. Found it very funny, but also a very good video. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It is an honest to goodness problem because it's fun to buy models, but then you end up with a whole bunch of models you don't paint. The story that I told in that video about being at a small local convention and seeing a woman sitting at a vendor's table selling all of her dead husband's models, it was totally true. He was a well-known wargamer in the area, and he died at the age of, 70-ish. And so she was selling all the models and stuff, and there were tons of them, and most of them were unopened, He was a bit more historical stuff, so I wasn't super interested in a lot of stuff he was selling, but there were a bunch of people buying it, and some of those people were probably going to buy those models and then take them home and put them in their basement, and then eventually someone else was going to have to sell them after they passed away. It's kind of like rummage sales, Sometimes you buy things at rummage sales and you just end up putting it in a rummage sale yourself later on. So you got to, I don't know. That is a concern, and I've been trying to be good about it. Luckily, I got a whole bunch of new models recently, but I didn't pay for those technically. Those were sent to me by by Games Workshop, which was lovely of them to do. But so I guess I guess that the fact that I didn't buy them means that it's working out well for me, that I'm not. Somebody else basically is helping with the hoarding in my basement, and I'm not having to pay for it. So that's a benefit, I guess. I don't know. Hard to say. Let me see here. T-shirt with Pachow. I've been honestly thinking a little bit about that, yeah. Chris says, I used to be a Dark Angels player in 3rd, but I decided if I was going to come back, I'd collect an army I enjoy, even if it was soul-crushing to build. Well, yeah, the orcs will be like that. Now, the upside to orcs, I think, have always been, I think you can speed paint them a little bit more, because they can look messy, and it's cool because they're orcs. I think also you can have some real fun with modeling. Like if you want to make a looted vehicle, you can do that, and that's a lot of fun. So you can just glue a bunch of plasticard as extra armor to a rhino that you buy off of eBay or whatever that's painted really horribly, or you can just go to town over the top of it, and it's all that's like super legal and easy and is completely orky and makes sense. It's harder to do that with some other armies because they have to be a little fancier, especially like Eldar. Like there's almost no such thing as dirty Eldar. You know what I mean? Like they don't ever get grimy. I'm sure that if they're on a snow planet, they walk on top of the snow like Legolas. So that kind of stuff. That's why I've never. Well, it's one of the many reasons why I've never been into Eldar. But anyway, VJ Morph says, yeah, 100% definitely need a Pachow shirt. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. VJ Morph says, yeah, the Cafe Press stuff looks a lot better now. Yeah, all those companies now have got way better quality. What I'm looking for is a company that has the kind of the product line that I'm looking for and has a decent price, because the downside to some of those print-on-demand T-shirts is they can be really expensive, So I'm looking for a good quality one, and that's still, I'm also looking for, and I think I've found one, but I have to go back and double check. I'm also looking for some company that also has a production facility in the UK, or in the EU, on the other side of the ocean. Because one of the big problems with the shirts that I sold back last year was that it was really expensive to ship them outside of the United States, because the post office had just, in January of 2016, dropped this huge price hike. It wasn't technically a price hike, they just decided that a shirt that weighed, or a package that weighed 8 ounces or 9 ounces cost just as much to ship as a package that cost 32 ounces. And they didn't make it so that the 32-ounce one was as cheap as it was to ship the 8-ounce one. They just made it that everything from 8 ounces up cost the same, and it was on the higher end. So that's why shipping was crazy expensive overseas for the T-shirts, sadly. So if I can find a company that does print on demand, and they have let's say a European production facility and an American production facility, then people in overseas can then order direct from someplace that's closer to them, and then not have to pay as much in shipping. So that's a big thing that I'm looking for as well. Zombie Boy asks, Adam, is Wreck Age like Dark Future, or more figs than vehicles? It is more figures, more people than vehicles. They have their most recent Kickstarter, which was right around back in March. It launched just before Adepticon. They added vehicles to the game via that. They have not shipped the vehicles out yet. They're being made out of resin, and they'll be shipping to backers sometime soon. Whenever the ship date was I think it might have been September or October. I don't quite remember when they're supposed to ship, but I believe they're still on track. But in general, Wreck Age is designed to be people shooting people, running around, that kind of stuff. Just people figures, not vehicles. They have added rules now for vehicles, and they do also now sell motorcycles, which I think you can even still get now. They were giving away the motorcycles in the swag bags at Adepticon. So there are vehicle rules that they're starting to move into the game, but for the most part, it's people on people, which I like a lot. Vehicle action is fine, but I really just like. Sometimes I do really enjoy games where that's one of the reasons I've been liking Shadow War so much, is because there's just generally not any vehicles. Sometimes vehicles can be problematic. Now with New 8th Edition, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see how that works. I'm really interested to see how the vehicles kind of turn out long term. But yeah, Wreck Age is a great post-apocalyptic game that is designed predominantly to be person-on-person action, which I enjoy. And again, it's skirmish. It's real small. Like my Stakers force, I think, is 5 people. I think that's my entire Stakers army is 5. Yeah, well, warband, I guess maybe you would call them. Yeah. So take a look at it. The rules, I believe you can download the skirmish rules on their website for free. It's like a 40 or 45 page document, and it's the entire skirmish rules. You can download it for free from their website. So check that out. It's a cool game. I play it a little bit around here right now just with one friend of mine from work, and hopefully another couple of guys are going to be getting into it soon as well that are from around here. So they're a lot of fun. Zombie Boy says Dark Future is his first love. He used to love converting cars. The cars that they're going to be selling for Wreck Age, that were part of the Kickstarter, but will probably be for sale normally once the Kickstarter stuff is shipped, are very modular, and they remind me a good deal of Mad Maxy type of stuff. So they're modular. You can there's like a main part, like the main body, but then there's a bunch of stuff you can stick to them. Like stowage or roll cages and things like that. They, I think, have a link to the Kickstarter on their website, but if you just do a Google search for Wreck Age Kickstarter and then maybe put the word vehicles in there as well, you'll find all the stuff about the Kickstarter and how it went and when it's going to ship and all that jazz. But like I said, I'm sure they will sell those model kits as well after the Kickstarter stuff gets shipped. So VJ Morph wants to know 8th edition, now that it's out, my thoughts. Is it better than 7th or way better than 7th? It's interesting how much it reminds me of Age of Sigmar, which is... when I started hearing that they were going to Age of Sigmarify 40K, like last year, I was like, no, they're not. And they didn't, technically. They're using some of the same game mechanics. They're using some of the same, like, they stopped doing that thing where, you have ballistic skill of 4, which means you have to subtract it from 7, and then that means you need a 3 or above to hit. They got rid of that and just are saying your ballistic skill is 3 up, which means if you want to hit with a ballistic weapon, it's 3 up. That makes total sense. And that kind of stuff, and weapon skill as well. They did that kind of same jazz. So they've kind of streamlined some of that stuff, which is cool. They put in a movement movement, instead of just everybody moving 6, now everybody moves a little differently, which is also Age of Sigmar related. The Battle Shock phase, well, they don't call it the Battle Shock phase, they call it the Morale phase, but it's basically the Battle Shock phase. It is almost identical to the way that Age of Sigmar's Battle Shock phase works. Magic, which is what they call the Psyker phase, almost exactly. Tweaked a bit. Many of the psychic abilities have thresholds where, like, if you need a 5 to do it, but if you get a 10 or higher, well, then you do it even better, that kind of stuff, which you don't see as much in Age of Sigmar. But that's kind of a standard thing especially like in Smite, which is like the standard, everybody has the ability to smite, that kind of thing. Psyker, well, everybody who's a Psyker has that ability. I don't know. I do like what I'm hearing about it. I like the fact that they finally, and I've said this a bunch of times, they finally just ripped off the Band-Aid and completely rebooted everybody's stats. Like, nothing was ever going to get better if they just kept putting out edition after edition after edition without completely starting over on the codexes, you know what I mean? Because if this army was really good in 7th edition, if they just made 8th edition and kept that guy's codex, it's probably going to be just still as good, you know what I mean? Probably not going to be a big difference. So that's where it's at. Now the fact that they've gone through and completely torn all of that stuff out and changed things, I like that a lot. I still personally believe they made a mistake by making it that the data sheets aren't free. I just think that they would sell more models long term if the data sheets were free. I'm not even against the fact that they're selling indexes. They're $25. They're a reasonable price. They've got lots of information in there. It's great. That's fine. My belief, though, is that I know personally I have bought more Age of Sigmar models because I can pull up my phone and look up a bunch of free stats on models that I don't own yet and then go, that would be a good idea to add that to my army. And you can't do that with the indexes. You can look at all the rest of the stuff that's maybe in your area. If you're a Space Marine player, that book, that Imperium 1, has all the Space Marine stuff in it. Awesome. But if you're thinking about, AdMech or Scutari, Well, you'd have to buy a separate book. So if you were thinking about putting both of those groups together into your army, and you certainly could because they both have keyword Imperium, now you got to go buy the other book. Well, it's not the end of the world. If you want to save the money, spend $25, buy another book, great. But if it's a Saturday night and the shop's closed and you're thinking about it, you stop thinking about it because you can't look it up. If you were sitting there going, well, I don't know, maybe, and you just pulled out your phone or put out your laptop and downloaded the data sheets and be like, oh, wow, these guys can do this. This would work really well with these guys and whatever. You can't do that when it's not for free. So the guys, when I talked to one of the guys from Games Workshop in Madison when I was there for that distributor expo thing, he said that it was a business decision, and I can understand that because they're going to sell a lot of these indexes right off the top. Right as soon as the launch, there's going to be a bunch of those things sold, and I get that. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I do think that's the one mistake they made, is they should have made those. There should have been an app or something that you could download and you could just go through all the different battle sheets and go from there. I think they would sell more models, especially long term. So otherwise, I'm interested. I've got friends that are interested again. I've got a bunch of people that I know who haven't played in years who are like all in, So I think it's a good thing. I think it's going to be a good thing for the hobby overall. And so certainly, obviously, for Games Workshop, but I think it's going to be a good thing for the hobby overall too. You're going to see accessories companies and companies making terrain and all this other stuff, and they're just going to see a swell of business and all that kind of stuff. That whole rising tides raises all ships kind of deal. That's pretty much my thoughts currently on 8th edition that I can think of. Let's see here. VJ Morph says, get it done in China, Adam. Cheap to send to everywhere in the world. Australia, too. I wish that a lot of the game designing companies would not get as much stuff made in China. I have nothing wrong with the Chinese, don't get me wrong. It's just that, I live in an area of the country where there's a lot of paper mills and there's a lot of printing places. And I know that game companies, let's say, Privateer Press, have had a lot of release dates slip because they have gotten simple, perfect bound books. Perfect bound books are softcover books, but they have the hard edge on the spine. They come to a sharp. I don't have anything right near me right now, but that's a perfect bound book if you're in the printing industry. They've sent those books off to get printed in China because they think it's so much cheaper, and then that book is 6 months late, and then they have to push their all that stuff back. Whereas if they would have paid just a tiny little bit more, they could have got them printed in America, specifically in this area of Wisconsin. And then if there was a problem, they could drive a truck here, pick them up, and then take them to wherever they needed to go. And it's right here. And a lot of these, plastics, injection molding, that stuff, there's not as many factories around here for that. There are some, certainly. I know a guy actually who works for an injection molding plastic company here in Wisconsin. And I'm sure they can get them way cheaper overseas, but then the shipping, the missed launch dates, all that kind of stuff, it's all super duper problematic for a company. Mercs, Megacon Games, the 2.0 version of the Mercs book was a year late, and that was because it was done in China, from what I can tell. From what they've said, basically it was just shipping problems and all kinds of issues, and then there was a problem in the L.A. port where it was on it was a strike. It was a strike for quite some time. So all that kind of stuff that just comes into play, and it slows down your business if that's the way you do it. So I'm probably not going to do any T-shirts over there. Is my point. I guess long story. The new painter says, Adam, check out Spreadshirt or Threadless for shirts. I've looked at Threadless. The other one I was looking at is called Spreadshirt or something like that. I'll go back. They're the one that has a facility both in the EU and also in the US. I think it's Spreadshirt, but I'll have to go back and check and see. I've got emails and stuff. I've been a little bit in conversation with them, asking some questions, because I wanted to know if a person bought a shirt and that person bought it from Europe, would it automatically get it produced in Europe and then shipped to them, or and as it turns out, I would actually have to have two versions of the shirt. So I'd have to have US and EU in the title, and then it would be up to the person ordering the shirt to order the right one, depending on where they lived, which is kind of a bummer, frankly. But currently that was about all we got there. VJ Morph says, I think they will come out with an army builder app that will have a monthly subscription. Yeah, I can pretty much guarantee they will do that, most likely, because they are technically doing that with the Age of Sigmar. VJ Morph says, was that the cat? Depends on what you were listening to. My wife walked through a little bit ago. The cat made some noise. One of the cats made some noise. So it's either my wife or a cat that made some of the noise. Zombie Boy says, my friend Rob needs convincing, as all he has is his old codexes, but everything moves on. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the codexes are great because they still have all the stories and the fluff and the, all the, what do you call it, the painting guides and all that jazz. But, I mean, that's, well, you've still got all that stuff. You've still got a painting guide. You've still got fluff. These new indexes just have the stats. There's really very little else in those books. There's not fluff. There's not anything else, which is why they're not very thick, and they're also relatively cheap. So, yeah. VJ Morph says, I've got at least 4 mates that have played in the past and are going to get back into 8th. That's cool. Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot. I really am. So, yeah. Michael Strickler says, preach, brother. I appreciate it. My friends are like vintage cars. They need a lot of showing. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. You're starting to see. I've got some friends too that were dubious and are becoming less so. So that's cool. I'll be glad to see some of those guys come back into the fold. I mean, honestly, and it's not an altruistic thing at all. It's like, well, I'll just have some more people to play with, which is cool. Now, again, I've gotten to the point where I really like skirmishes a lot and smaller games, so I'm concerned because I'm like, I don't want to have to field 60 guys. I don't want to have to paint that many guys. I don't want to have to lug around 60 guys. So I'm kind of, yeah. I'm hoping that there's like, in Age of Sigmar, what I generally play and what most of us in the area play are 1,000-point lists, which my 1,000-point list is for Chaos, mostly Nurgle, is about 25 models, maybe a little bit more. But that's not too bad. It's the... Now, if I play Death, it gets way higher, but that's my own fault because it's Death, and there's a lot of cheap skeletons in that list. But you can do it that way. If there's like what's like 1,000 points or something, equal for 8th edition, where I've got a model or a list that's maybe only 25, 30 models, I'm on board, definitely. But if it's something where you're like, well, if you want to play 1,500 points, you're going to have to bring, 100 models, yeah. I don't look forward to it, especially when I'm used to playing these days a lot of skirmish games that are, between 5 and maybe 20 models tops. That's kind of what I like. So, let's see here. And we talked a little bit about Leviathans from Catalyst Games. Actually, Josh McCarthy and I had that conversation at TMX about Leviathans. Leviathans was a game about flying kind of steampunky, boats. That was made by Catalyst Labs, the guys who currently have the license for Shadowrun and for Battletech. And this was their own IP, and they made it, and they got stuck in China for a really long time and kind of killed the game. So that was a problem, definitely. Ian McAndrews says, Games Workshop's share price has gone from 440 GBX, which is a number, it's probably, it's stock market over there, last June, to 1182 GBX now. Kirby, the old CEO, was making really bad decisions, and Kevin Roundtree, the new CEO, has really turned it around. That is really, really, like, if you've been paying attention, it's super obvious that this new leadership has really got their stuff together. I mean, it's really, it's night and day. It really is. So I'm really glad, you know what I mean? Chris Taylor says, new codexes are coming, right? From what I understand, yes. Now, I believe the way it's going to be is it's going to be a little bit like, again, like Age of Sigmar, more of this Age of Sigmar stuff that they're bringing into it. I believe what's going to happen is the codexes are going to be like for specific factions. So let's say it's a Blood Angels codex. Okay, so it's got all kinds of fluff and it's got some hobby stuff in it, and then it has the same like data sheets that are in the Imperium 1 index. Like just like in Age of Sigmar, I've never bought any of the hardcover, for lack of a better term, codexes. They call them something else, battle tomes, I think. But I've never bought any of those. Like, a friend of mine plays Sylvaneth, so he bought the Sylvaneth hardcover, which is a skinny little hardcover, but it's a hardcover. And it has all the data sheets he needs in it, which he could have just downloaded off the website, and it's got story. But it also has some battalions, which are like formations, and it has some battalions that are very specific to him, to his guys, that he can do, spend points on it, and then get special abilities. I have a suspicion they're going to do the same type of thing like that for 40k. The data slates are going to be the same data sheets that you can get out of the current indexes, but there will be fluff. There will also be specific detachments just for that army, and maybe some specific like psychic abilities or whatever, something. I don't, maybe not the psychic abilities, because the psychic abilities now are kind of attached specifically to the models, not. So we'll see how it goes. But I think that's what they're going to be doing. Again, they're not going to be super necessary. Like, you would probably still easily be able to play with the normal index, but if you want these fancy detachments and some other special abilities, maybe a special character or two, you would need to buy that book, but you don't have to. If they're smart, that's the way they're going to do it. And then just put these books out, but they'll all be very faction specific. You know, right now, all the detachments that are in the main rule book are all basically, as long as you have, like with Imperium, I can use, you don't have to do allies anymore like you used to. You can literally, within a single army, just mix anything as long as it's got the Imperium keyword in it. So you could mix together any Space Marines, Imperial Guard, Inquisition, Sisters, AdMech, Scutari, all that junk. You mix it all together all into one army, and it's not even, you're not even playing with allies, you're just like, they're all on the same team. Because you can mix in a single detachment any group as long as they have the same keyword. These new detachments that will probably be in the new codexes will be like, this detachment all has to have the Blood Angel code, you know, or whatever, something like that, and then you'll be able to get some sort of special ability or whatever. So, or more command points, or who knows what. But right now, when you look at the detachments, they only give you command points. There's no other benefits for doing the detachments the way that they show in the book. So that's kind of where that's at. According to Mini Wargaming and the FLG guys, codexes are definitely on the way. Yeah, I'm hearing potentially as soon as maybe fall. So that'll be interesting. What else have we got? I used Space Marines to practice my painting last year when I started up again. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, I've bought Space Marines, like cheap, old, beat-up looking nasty ones. I bought them off of eBay and then used them as just painting examples. Like, especially if I was like, when I was coming up with my own chapter for a while there, and I'm just thinking about if I decide to go back into actual Space Marines and not just all chaos, I might go back into that. But when I was coming up with that concept and everything, I was using old Space Marines that I bought off of eBay, like just the ones from like Assault on Black Reach, which was I think the 5th edition starter box. I was using those as the test models. So I would kind of, you know, I knew what I wanted in my mind, and then I would paint it one way, and then I had like 5 of them, and then I would do the same thing, and then I would change a little bit and go, well, that didn't work. And then so I just kind of figured it out until I dialed in everything I wanted, and I wrote everything down. Well, I actually put it in my phone, put all the information down for the recipe, so that now if I want to go back and start painting models like that again, I just have to go through and search through my app on my phone. I use Evernote for keeping notes. I just go back and search that until I find that recipe, and then I go, oh yeah, that's how I did that, which is really super helpful because my memory is garbage, frankly. So that's not going to work. Zombie Boy says, luckily I have 2,000 points of Ultramarines ready to go. Well, then you're set. Yeah, absolutely. The Nude Painter says, oh, Adam, you'll love it. Some of the new Plague Marines have wood on their guns. Bolters, though, not plasmas. That's true. That's true. I do have this really old... metal Plague Marine who has a plasma gun. He's like probably from 3rd or 4th edition, I think. And he's metal. But his plasma gun looks like it's made out of... It's made out of wood. Like, it has a wood grain in it, and he's holding this wooden plasma gun, which seems like a super good idea with how, plasma likes to light up. So, yeah, it's interesting. VJ Morph says, yeah, I got my painting back up to speed using the Kill Team box. Space Marines and Tau. Not planning on playing either of them, but great to paint. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Tau are kind of a pain to put together because the Fire Warriors themselves can have... And those guys... I don't know if there were Fire Warriors in that box or Pathfinders. I don't remember. But Fire Warriors are like 12 or 13 pieces per guy, because even the little antenna on their helmet, you got to glue that on separately, which is crackers. So they're kind of a pain to build, but you can't really customize them a ton, in my opinion. But they are quick to paint, certainly. So that's helpful. That was my first ever 40k army, really, was painting Tau. And, I quick painted them, and they worked out fine. So, yeah, I don't know. It's that kind of stuff helps a lot. Just kind of getting your legs underneath you, and to help you move your painting forward. So, VJ Morph, Adam, question: how did you score the 8th Ed box pre-release? Not looking for the hookup, just wondering if GW are showing you some love. Yeah, they are. I had a meeting at Adepticon with Eddie, who's on their Twitch stream all the time. He's one of their main community guys. And we had a meeting Saturday night? I think it was Saturday night after they got done with a recording for Twitch, a stream. And he and I had a meeting, half hour, 45 minutes or so, upstairs in one of the restaurant areas. And just talked about, I was just like, hey, I've been doing all these videos, and I'm, been pushing Age of Sigmar a lot and all this kind of stuff and whatever. And we kind of talked back and forth a little about that. And then we also talked about, honestly, I told him a good deal about the app, that my day job that we're doing for connecting tabletop gamers and all that stuff. So we talked about that as well. And then I said, if we could figure out some sort of way to kind of work together and things like that and all this and stuff. And so he's like, oh, yeah, he says, we can do that. So then they sent me an NDA that I had to sign and all that kind of stuff. And then in theory, I'll start getting more stuff from them pre-release down the road. Some of it maybe with don't talk about this until the 3rd or whatever, that kind of thing. But this stuff just showed up, not this past Tuesday and not the Tuesday before. Oh, was it the Tuesday before? I don't know. In the last couple of weeks. I think it was the Tuesday before this last Tuesday. It just showed up in the mail. So it was a box with the starter box and another box that was the 5 indexes. And but a lot of different, Mini Wargaming had it before I did. A bunch of people had it like that, but it was basically direct from Games Workshop. They just mailed out, which they never used to do. They never used to send stuff out to reviewers or anything like that. They first started doing it when they released the box set for Age of Sigmar. Some fantasy podcasts all of a sudden got this box in the mail. And they're like, what the hell is this? And so that was kind of astounding. But now they're going to be doing it a lot more just because they understand it helps to drive, it helps to drive videos, But people just are interested in talking about it because they've got it. The channels like myself love to talk about how, I got this, you guys can't get it yet. It's pre-release, but I'm talking about it and everything like that. It's just a smart idea on their part, marketing-wise. They're getting a lot smarter at that, as it turns out. They actually have a marketing department. They didn't have one for the longest time, from what I understand. So all the Imperium stuff can play nice, but it seems all the Xenos races are pretty limited with allies. Fits the fluff, but not exactly balanced. That I haven't looked at. I don't know. I should look at the books, because that's a good question. So Chaos, all the Chaos guys can be Chaos together, but that's not that surprising, I guess. I do wonder if... Yeah, maybe not. Probably not. I bet you can't just... there's probably not a Xenos keyword. To be honest, I haven't really looked at the Xenos stuff too much. I've only been looking at Chaos and Space Marines. Or Chaos and Imperium. But yeah, I'm betting you can't just decide to hook up an Eldar with a whole bunch of Tau and a bunch of Orcs, necessarily, But yeah, that's kind of where that comes from. I wonder if Dynamic Poses is where GW will go for all miniature packs in the future. That's a good question. I don't know. A lot of these single frame little guys that come in the little clamshells, a lot of them are very dynamically posed, and they only really go together one way. I'm building right now, one of the last pieces I'm building for my Imperial Guard kill team for Shadow Wars. I'm building an Engisir, and he goes together pretty much just the one way. He's not very posable, but he's a cool model, and it's also super quick to build, so there's a benefit to that too. The rank and file troops, because you need so many of them, more often than not, they're going to be the ones that are a lot more adjustable and customizable because you want them to look all different. If they all looked exactly the same, that would be a little weird. But when you have a one-off model, like a Tech Priest or a Commissar, that kind of stuff, those make them a little bit easier. So, anyway. Well, as it is, I'm about to go run down to the shop. It's about 2 p.m. my time, so I hope that those of you who've been able to, kind of tune in once I got through the technical issues, I hope that you guys are happy or had a good time, and I hope that those of you who are watching this later on, other irregulars who were, unable to make the live show or want to watch it while you're painting later on and didn't want to paint while the show was on, which I can totally understand. I hope you guys also have an enjoyable time with the chat. I might see some of you tomorrow if you're going to come to the live show tomorrow. That's going to be normal. And again, hopefully I'm going to dial out some of these technical issues right up front. That'll be great. So yeah, Anyway, I hope everybody has a good Saturday, and those of you who are dads, have a good Father's Day tomorrow. That's Father's Day in America for those of you who are from overseas. So, yeah, that's how it'll go. I'm going to go to my local shop, and then I'm going to try to figure out this stupid webcam a little bit more, and then later on I'm going to go have hibachi at the birthday party, so that'll be nice. But anyway, thanks for the support. Patreon, if you guys have noticed recently, has completely changed their branding, so all the artwork and their logo and all that kind of stuff looks a good deal different. They're adding some new features down the road. There's really nothing so far that's going to impact you guys at all. There was like a new change in analytics right now, and then they talked about other stuff that's coming down the road on my end as well, which they haven't launched yet. But otherwise, yeah, I appreciate the support from everybody. I really do. And the bat reps are coming because of the support from you guys and everything else. And so definitely. And I'll keep posting stuff. Like I said, I posted some pictures earlier today. I posted a picture earlier today of some of the terrain that I'm going to spray paint after I get back from the store. So, alrighty, and Michael, you're good that you got the nail polish idea. That'll be. I should probably get one of those racks myself eventually. Once I get my table moved to where I wanted to have it all set up, I may just do that. Anyway, I'm gonna go to the shop. You guys have a good day.